Hi everyone, my name is Julia Opria and welcome to a new episode of the podcast called 3D People, the Way We Work. In this episode, my guest is going to be Alexander De Vore from 3D Printing Corporation from Japan. Before we start the interview with Alex, I asked him to give us a tour in his factory in Japan. So check it out.
Okay, welcome. We're going to go on a little factory tour. So this is our site in Yokohama, and Yokohama is really kind of a base for manufacturing in Japan. So we're only doing 3D printing here and all the processes supporting 3D printing. So in this space we have like a little meeting area. Typically we discuss with our clients and show what we're doing. We have some data space here. This is where we do some of our designs, and mostly our DFAM engineers are here. We have some QA and also some scanning, so when we do some reverse engineering or some QA for finished parts, we'll do it here. This is some working area, so we have typically a few guys here that are working on the different projects that are ongoing. So I think some are making some kind of, these are some car parts and looks like a jig for painting. And then this area, we have some different 3D printing technologies. Different 3D printing technologies. And then we have a post-processing section. The post-processing section, we have two parts, one for composites and one for metals. And this is also post-processing for our polymer parts to increase strength, increase chemical resistance, and increase surface smoothness. And we have some more 3D printing here for composites. And that's mostly our site. We have a little bit of a storage area, and then we have a back office where we do some of our soft work, like finances and marketing, and that's it. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of 3D People, the Way We Work. This time I'm speaking with Alexander De Vore from Japan. Hi, Alex, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How are you feeling today?
Hot, right?
Hot.
It's hot, humid summer in Japan. So
yeah. So it's about 10:30 here. What time is it there right now?
So now it's 5:30.
5:30. Okay.
Yeah, PM.
Quite a time difference here.
Yeah,
and you are
international. Yeah.
You are located in the area of Tokyo, no? In Yokohama.
Yokohama. So Tokyo is really, I think everybody knows Tokyo, but the other big cities in Japan are Osaka and Yokohama. Yokohama is just 40 minutes outside of Tokyo.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So tell us something about yourself. First of all, where are you from and how did you end up in Japan? I mean, I think it's not easy to do business in Japan. I was a student there, an exchange student, so I kind of have a feeling of the cultural differences and everything, but definitely not from in as much detail as you have from your experience. So tell us a bit about yourself first, and then we'll go towards business in Japan.
Sure. So I never thought I would be in Japan, right? I don't think I'm American, and I think when you're growing up, the last thing on your mind is you're going to be working in 3D printing industry in Japan. But I got really interested in economics. I think that was always a really big passion of mine from a young age. And then as I got out of university and I really had to figure out what to do, I knew I really wanted to see if I can fix the question of why we're getting poorer as a society. you know, I always feel poorer than my parents. And I think a lot of young people feel that way. And so I became, you know, not initially interested in 3D printing, but became interested in that sort of that question is like, how do you, why are people rich or why are people poor? And I think that's a really fundamental economic question. But the answer that we get in university is not completely satisfactory, I felt. So I kind of went around the world to Italy and to China and I think learning as much as I can about business. I started some businesses, had various levels of success. And then, you know, I was actually on vacation in Japan and I was in the countryside and I was a little bit bored. So I started doing a lot of research on some topics I was interested in, and I think at this time it was 2006 to 2015, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that you know, there's a huge manufacturing economy. I think people don't realize it's how things are made. And that tends to drive a lot of the wealth, prosperity that countries enjoy. And I was looking at Japan. It's kind of this very weird place because initially you think, oh, it's, you know, really technologically advanced, but then later you come to find out that actually there's not a lot of technology in manufacturing in Japan.
Mm.
But nevertheless, manufacturing is about 20% of the Japanese economy. And then I think that's when I got the initial idea like, hey, you know, 3D printing can actually affect the supply chain of Japanese manufacturers. And then I think at that point, during my vacation, I decided I'm going to start a business in Japan and with 3D printing and trying to really fix this manufacturing problem.
Did you know what you're getting yourself into?
No idea. I think, yeah, I think if you did, you would never start a business in Japan. Yeah.
Or a business.
Or a business in general, sure.
In general, probably.
Sure.
And were you
Sure.
speaking the language at the time when you were on a holiday?
No.
No, not yet.
I was, no, I was, and partially this is why I was bored, right? Because there's not a lot to do if you're in the countryside and you're, you know, and you don't speak the language, you don't really know anything. So
you have a lot of thermal baths, no?
Yeah, I like, you know, onsen, and
Onsen,
I really
yeah,
like.
Exactly.
I really like, and it's always amazing, you know, because I go into onsen, and I remember the first time, and people are looking at me, and it's, I think they're more embarrassed than I am, because I think there's the image that Westerners are very scared to go into onsen. Of course, because you're completely disrobed, but no, I don't mind. So that's really one of the nice things is I think if anyone's touring Japan, please visit all of the local onsens.
Yeah, I also went to onsens, and it was 2005, I remember. And there was a sauna, and there was a huge television built in the sauna, which I found very strange. And they were watching all sorts of TV shows in the sauna. So it's a place where you see things for the first time in your life, and you might not be able to identify them. Yeah, I mean, that's what that was my experience.
I think my big sauna experience was I was in Osaka. And it was one of my first business deals, actually. So we were going to visit a client, and I think we had just closed the deal. So we went out to dinner, and we were drinking, but it was really late. And we were thinking like, yeah, well, I think beer in this case, but yeah, beer. we were going, and we're walking back to our hotel, and it's middle of the night, something like this. But we were like, oh wow, it's, you know, it's so hot and muggy. Let's go to Sento Onsen. So we go. We see a local one. We walk in, and first kind of alarm was that there's no changing room. You know, you walk in, and the lobby is also the locker room.
Ooh.
So very old style, place. And okay, fine. There's nobody here, so no problem, right? Just there's an 80-year-old lady at the desk, so I pay my few coins and go in. And so I walk in, and then I go through the door, and I see a pool full of these tattooed guys. And tattoo guys, just so you know, in Japan means Yakuza. So there's no way. So I was walking in, and it was sort of I think it was a mutual shock, right? Because here's a tub full of these guys, and then I'm just, so I kind of, but I have too much pride to just turn around and walk out, right? So I kind of walk to the back, I go into the sauna, which is a little enclosed area. I stay for about a respectable 10 minutes, and then I walk out, I think. But it was pretty, it was interesting sauna experience.
Oh my God. Yeah, because at that point, turning around and walking out is, I think, worse than staying.
That's right.
I wouldn't walk away.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So,
but tell me, so how do you do business? So when you close a deal, what happens in Japan when you close a deal?
a lot of paperwork. So.
But you also celebrate. Like, is it a part of the business
Yeah,
culture
it depends.
to celebrate, or it depends?
It depends on size of deal. I think there's kind of a time, there's an expectation. I think one of the big differences between Western and maybe Eastern styles of business is that there's like a real sense that you're working with other people. So you all kind of want to celebrate as a community. So you would always go to dinner, and there's like a really famous thing in Japan is like a nomikai. People have a really hard time opening up during the day. So a lot of the way to build rapport with your coworkers is going to be through after hours food and drinking. And and this is always a debate, because there's a kind of is this a bad culture? Is this a good culture? And I don't think I can answer those kind of questions. I think it is sort of what it is, but the expectations really very, very different. So when you do successful in business, you would often have actually fairly wild party. I think it's really funny because in Italy, you can go onto the street, and at lunchtime people are going to have a glass of wine, and then they're going to go about their day, right? They're a lawyer, and then they finish the rest of their day, and then they go home. But in Japan, you would never drink during the day. You got to be really buttoned up during the day. But the paradox is that, like, when it's party time, it's like really party time. And then they just cut loose. So I think it's, there's some.
It's like what you try to keep in check and what you try to repress will come out at some point. So I think it manifests also during 24-hour process, because they follow a lot of rules, right? Like they really do business according to certain etiquette.
That's right.
Is it like that, right?
Yeah, it is. But it's so I've been here for 5.5, 6 years, like that, something like that now, and I've seen it change. Actually, I even remember when I started, it was a little bit more formal, and now it's definitely loosening up.
Okay, so let's go back a bit in time. So you decided you're going to do a business in Japan, then you flew back from the holiday and then came back again, right? It's how was the okay? You came back, and then tell us a bit.
Came back.
How did you get started? Like, how did you start your business?
Well,
and you have a team now. You also built a team. So I'm so curious how the steps were in the process.
Sure. So I think we're at something like 24 people now, and I think it was a long process. So when I started, I know I had the idea. Um, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I really thought about the business strategy. I think one of the best things I did in the business strategy was I basically admitted I didn't know anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to really like think about how do you build a business without knowing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the problem like that, and then you start to break it down into sort of smaller problems, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know that becomes much more manageable. So you start with like you know, how can I build this relationship, or you know, what am I going to do this week? Who am I going to talk to today? Um,
Mm-hmm.
those are really basic, like simple things that don't require a lot of strong strategy, and then I think you need to think that you just have to keep going, um, and um, and then we grew pretty organically. So we always needed to know we needed to make profit. I think one of my big shocks was that I didn't factor in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in Japan, the level of service is very high. So there's a kind of a tacit acknowledgement of services rendered when you buy machines. You can't actually like sell anything to anybody without providing a very high level of service
Mm-hmm.
in
Like
Japan.
what kind of service?
Everything. So typically in America, you might sell consulting. So there's like some consulting 3D printing businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But in Japan, you would never, well, not never, but very rarely is a company going to go out and purchase consulting.
Okay.
They will buy something else from you and then expect you to have that kind of in-depth coverage of the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Or you know, there's a lot to do with it. I mean, it goes so far as salespeople often like hand deliver products because it's more respectful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to build relationship, and I think the thing that one of the big lessons I learned, you know, was that in Japan, it's not what you are selling, it's who is selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So that because the companies take a lot of time to qualify their vendors, you know, if you're a big auto company in Japan, uh, you're not gonna, it's not even gonna be like a 1 quarter process. You're gonna go through a very long qualification process with these guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to, you know, necessarily ruin that relationship either. So they're, you know, because they don't want to repeat that work. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll keep buying from you. So loyalty is much higher in Japan for
Mm-hmm.
the relationship between customer and business.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of time it takes to get there is also much higher.
Mm-hmm. So you say, what I understand is like a slower process of building the trust.
Yeah, slower process of building in trust. And so
Mm-hmm.
I really had to think about like, how am I going to build relationships and reputation in Japan as being a foreigner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
that was really tough. But of course, I had a Japanese team to help me, and so you know, I really credit some of the first people in the company because um, you know it was just us going out there and building it basically one relationship at a time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and we would work really hard to get the first few clients,
Mm-hmm.
and we would endure a lot, and then and it was really like you know, a big success when we get the first ones, and over time then you build that relationship, word of mouth spreads, and then and it becomes a little bit easier, but yeah, those first few ones were bought in blood.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you recruit your team? So how do you find the right people in Japan in 3D
Yeah, that's
printing?
it's such a good question, because I think that I always think that the biggest challenge now is if I can get enough good people into the company, because
Mm-hmm.
it just drives everything. And I had to really think about this, and my conclusion was like this: um, we're so different than other traditional companies, in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
that if I use the same recruitment strategy as those big guys, I'm always going to lose. And Japan has its own recruitment strategy. They do actually they do a lot of group interviews straight out of university. The third year in university, you're expected to have a job lined up for when you get out.
Ooh.
And there's a certain way to dress. I always joke, sometimes I'm sitting drinking coffee and I'm maybe early morning or something, and you see these group of young people all dressed the same. They've got the special black suit and they've got the special handbag, and the girls have a special hair tie band, and the guys, they have special shoes and stuff. And you're like, it's like a flock of birds, descending. And what you realize is actually they're all going to group interviews because they've got to get the university system and everything is structured so that everybody's got a job. And if you look at Japan's job rate, it's joblessness rate or unemployment rate, it's very low. So businesses are hungry for people. But these big guys, they capture them because they're part of the system and they know the system. So I didn't know the system. So I never wanted to fight on the same battleground as them, right? So my strategy was, I'm going to accept the fact that I'm not a Japanese company and target the 5% of the population that never wants to work at a typical Japanese company. And then when I did that, I was really successful. And then I just pulled the top percentage of those 5%. And there's a lot because there's 100 million people in the country. You don't need to capture all of it to have a great team. You just need to really know who you want to go after and then get those guys.
And were you advertising? What platforms do you have there for advertising?
At the start, I didn't have enough money to pay headhunters because headhunters in Japan cost around 35% of yearly salary, so pretty expensive. And I couldn't afford it. So I had to think about that. And what I did was I built a community, a 3D printing community. And every other Saturday, I would go out and I would go into a public space. I would advertise online, some of the online like meeting groups. And there's ones like Meetup, but there's also more local ones. And so I would do that. And then I would actually never talk about the company. I would just I would give free lessons of like how to do 3D printing, like what is 3D printing, and we scaled it. I adjusted it based on if we got some more advanced people in, we would talk about that stuff. If it was really beginners, we would talk about just really basic stuff. And I remember I used to carry a small 3D printer with me just to put it on the table, just to explain to people what 3D printing is, because it's much more powerful when you have that sitting right there.
Yeah.
So then and then it was really simple. I just looked at the people that were passionate about it and wanted to get into it, and then started a conversation with them. And
that's a really good idea.
Nowadays, I don't have to do so much work. I pay headhunters, and that helps. I still think, and we are still working a lot on building a community, because I think that we have to, 3D printing industry is not so big, right? So we need that sense of community to really get the most talented people that really want to come up. And I think if you look at a lot of companies, guys that are like CTO of some billion-dollar company now, head of the 3D printing additive at some billion-plus company, those guys were like just graduate students tinkering on RepRap 5 years ago. And I think that's so interesting and that really is reminiscent, I think, of the sort of computer and internet age. I was too young for that, but I get that same vibe where you've got this like 20-year-old guy running like, Armco's internet, brand, because nobody else in the world knows how to build a website.
Yeah. What is one crazy challenging story that happened with you there? Can you tell us something that's been like something like where you felt like I really haven't seen this before, and like how am I gonna
yeah. Without mentioning names.
Yeah.
We have one very one big client, industrial client, and we were going through the qualification process, to kind of be vendor, to kind of to work with them, and it was really long, complex, and the deadline they gave us was really like crazy, and I feel like the guy wanted to fail us, because it was just insane. He was acting like it was just like, oh yeah, you got 3 days and you got to do this, and it's like it's impossible. But we kind of came together as a team, and then we said, okay, we're gonna do it anyways. And I can't go into so much specifics, but I remember then I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know the schedule, I know what we got to get done. So I wake up at 3:30, I drive to the factory, and 3:30 a.m. drive to the factory, and I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna start this because I know we got to get this done, and we were doing a bunch of development at the same time. It wasn't just even like a simple print operation. It was like it was technical development, and then I walk in, and actually the whole team is there, and it was really like, and they stayed the whole night, and they looked like they looked bad. So I think we went through a case of Red Bull or something in that day. But I think that was one of the really crazy things. But what it taught me is that, because I didn't ask them, to be there. But I think at that point in time, there was a really a mutual respect for how much we're giving to try and build. So.
Wow, they really stayed there without asking. That's something special.
I think they knew, because I think there were they said, like, we're going to do this, so we're going to do it, and wow. It was really great. I mean, yeah, and yeah, it was good.
That must have been a really good feeling. Now it's also keeping the team together to do something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I think to build a business, I think you have to do that. You have to be very extreme. I think people forget that work can be very difficult too. I see if you trust the social media entrepreneurs, wow, work sounds great. It's just like friendship and caring and sharing, and things materialize. But I think when you build a business, all of that plays part, but there's an element where you do it, and if you don't do it, you're not going to be successful.
What are your plans going forward with your business?
Yeah, without saying too much, I think our objective is to build an alternative supply chain, and I think the technology we're trying to leverage is 3D printing. I think we're going to have a very good business model that's very well adjusted to make Japan kind of catch up in 3D printing. It's a little bit behind. Manufacturing skills very high in Japan. But there's a few key elements that are missing to get them to really get to the point where what you're seeing in America, what you're seeing in Germany with additive. And I think our solution to that is not just a technology solution. I think it's also it's a business model solution as well. So I think you're going to see, and I think we'll announce that. I think you'll see something about that probably end of this year, start of next year.
Okay, excited to learn what it is. And what about the future of 3D printing in Japan? What can you say about that? Where is it heading?
Yeah, it's a good question because the Japan's, the automotive is such a strong industry. There's like aerospace in America, and it drives a lot of 3D printing. But if I have to say, I think that and without giving too much away, because I do have some inside information, right? But I think you're going to see a lot of Japanese companies trying to tackle very fundamental challenges to 3D printing. And what I mean by that is fundamentals like, I think you're going to start to see some of the bigger Japanese companies enter the market as really like a early, really upstream suppliers.
Okay. I don't know if I could ask, can you tell us more? But
I think the focus the focus in Japan is not going to be on building a better machine. I don't think that's going to happen. I think even if the companies wanted to, I don't think they can, because there's not enough. So one of the issues is that the big corporates they're very heavily siloed. If they build a team, if they say, hey, Yamada-san, please make a new 3D printer. Okay, so the board of directors, kicks it down, and Yamada-san says, oh geez, what do I do? Build a new 3D printer. I'm gonna get all our best machine engineers together in a room and tell them to build a 3D printer, right? And okay, so great, but they're too homogenous in their skill sets. So they're just looking at engineer. But actually, I think if you look at the really successful companies inside of the 3D printing industry now, one of the attributes that they share is that they're really mixed teams between software, sales and marketing, of course, mechanical engineers, you've got material specialists, and you don't see that mix across the board in Japanese companies. Of course, they have in their group, right? They've got 100,000 employees. Of course, they've got material specialists. Of course, they've got software and machine specialists, but they can't pull them all into the same room. And because of that, they're not going to be too successful with the machine, I believe. And so what I think they are doing instead, what I think some of the companies that I'm not mentioning, is they're going to go upstream, and they're going to look at some of the really core fundamental technologies that have been a part of their business for maybe 100 years. And they're gonna look at opportunities for how to apply that into the 3D printing industry, because actually Japan is really looking at 3D printing. There is a huge interest in Japan. I think some of the people know. And the interesting fact about Japan is that they were actually leading 3D printing at one point in the early 90s. If you look at some of the companies that were building 3D printers, I think there was 8 or 9 companies building 3D printing machines in Japan in like 1992 or something. But they all went away. They didn't have the. I think it takes a kind of a business leadership vision of what you're going to do long term. I think they saw the technology and said, "Hey, this is really interesting technology. Let's build a machine. It's not really making much money, or we're just breaking even. Okay, pass." It's tough because a lot of decisions are made by consensus. The heroic entrepreneur does not exist in Japan.
Okay.
It's a bunch of guys sitting around a table, and everybody's trying to achieve consensus with one another. And I always think one of the interesting things people don't realize is that meetings in Japan are generally a ritual. Nothing is decided at a meeting. Everything is decided in a one-on-one pre-conversation.
The meeting before the meeting.
The meeting before the meeting. And there's a word, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble saying this, but nemawashi is a kind of word for this. And I don't know if we have like a great expression for this, but it sounds really sinister. But what's really going on is they're trying to achieve consensus so that when you walk into the meeting with 10 people, there's not going to be any surprises. Because nobody wants to walk in and be the one that's sticking out and be like, hey, Yamada-san has a crazy idea. What, it will never happen. And to kind of continue for business continuity over a decade or more, you've got to have strong leadership that's got a vision that's going to drive the continuity of the business. And they don't have that. So that didn't happen.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And what about women in 3D printing? That's also a good question. How are women present on the talent market there? Or in
well,
3D
not as
printing?
much as I would like, because I always think Japanese women are so strong at working. Like the guys complain all the time, right? But
Really?
but girls are so strong in Japan. It's really I think people have it totally wrong understanding of Japanese society. But anyways, the women are pretty well represented in 3D printing in Japan, given the fact that they're just generally not well represented at higher level positions in companies in Japan, just in general. 3D printing is probably a little bit better. I think there's, because it's a newer business, there's a tendency to promote more based on merit than other motivations.
And the ages or the years you've spent in a company, because is that also a factor in promotion? How many years you've been in the company?
Big factor, right? Big factor. But not in 3D printing business, because the reason is because it's too new of a business. You see that really in businesses that are very established, very stable businesses. A lot of people don't realize that Japanese companies are not under the same mandate for growth from their shareholders as Western companies are. Western companies, it's like we have to grow, right? Or our shareholders are going to throw us out. Not true in Japanese with Japanese shareholders. They're willing to take no growth, but to have a completely stable profit.
It's interesting. Are there any women in your team at the moment?
Yeah, of course. We have. I think about 30-40% of the company is
wow, that's nice. That's really nice. Wow, Alex, this has been really exciting. I feel like I went on a journey. Is there anything that you would like to share which I didn't ask? You think it's important for the audience to learn or to know, either about the culture or your company or your experience there?
Yeah, if I could say, I would only give some unsolicited advice, which is that you have to really suspend your notions of how to do business.
Yeah, if you're thinking about going to Japan and make business. If you're thinking
about entering, that's right.
Yeah.
But also be very careful. Don't abandon your rational brain either. That's what I'm suggesting. But it's not sufficient to say, because we do it like this way in Europe, or because we do it this way in America, that business is going to translate to Japan equally. Very likely it's not. So you need to really think about that, and you really need to think about that doesn't mean you have to buy everything that someone tells you either. Just because no, this is how we do it in Japan. I mean, one of my first transactions, I did a printing service job and I was by myself, and I did a printing service job for a lab, because somehow I got connected. I was the only one that could do it, something like that. And I think it was about $300. And the first thing the guy told me was, well, we can't pay you until a month later, and then it's delivered, and then we'll pay you on the next month. And you think, okay, that seems a little strange for a $300 part, and we've never had previous business, but he said, no, but this is how business is done in Japan. So I said, okay. But sure. And so far, that seems reasonable. And then the next month, their company went bankrupt, and I never got paid.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's only happened once in my whole and actually we have and now we do business like that all the time, right? Because it is really how business is done in Japan. However, you have to open up your mind, but you also have to keep your wits about you.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's an interesting balance. Yeah. And I remember something that I wanted to ask you. It's what about people who want to move to Japan to work in 3D printing from Europe or from the US? Is there, besides what you've said, would you advise them anything else that they should prepare with before they travel to Japan?
It's a tough question because I don't think there's anything actually. I think you should actually not prepare anything. I think that's a mistake maybe to prepare. I think you should go into it thinking with very open mind. But I think the one thing is that you should know about getting a job in Japan is it's not as easy as other places. What that means is that you have to have some specialized skill to get into the country, just in general. And somebody and a company really has to go through a pretty painful process of bringing you in. So generally, those specialists that are here from overseas, they're pretty smart guys. So I don't think it's not like you're just going to apply and it's not like well other places so that's one thing. And the next
keep
thing
an
is
open mind.
Yeah, and the next thing is that you prepare to be a second-class citizen.
What does that mean?
Well, I think there's the foreigner community in Japan often hotly debates this topic, but there's a very clear line in Japan between Japanese people, Japanese nationals, and non-nationals. And if that makes you uncomfortable, not being accepted into that group, then probably Japan is not going to be you're not going to have a very pleasant experience. I get along with it okay, because I always think like, I'm just a second-class citizen, so no problem. And but that will make some people very uncomfortable. So it's not. Maybe I'm making it sound too bad. It's not like a bad thing. Nobody's gonna attack you in the street or something like that. But if you try to get an apartment, prepare to be denied. Because you're a foreigner. If you try to get a bank loan, prepare to be denied. You better prepare to be excluded from a lot of the very basic things that we would consider a part of a society. You should prepare, and if that doesn't fit you,
in the beginning,
not at the beginning, all the time. I have people walk in. I have people in business come in and to me and basically automatically sort of ask me very stupid questions or reject me purely based on being a foreigner. Actually, I never complain, and even now I'm not complaining. I think that that's just part of.
It's just something to be aware of. Yeah, it's something to be aware of and to not take it personally.
That's right. You really shouldn't take it personally. Otherwise, you're going to be very bitter.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks a lot, Alex. This was a great interview. I feel like I've learned a lot. If anyone has any more questions about Japan, what's it like to work there, I will tag you on our LinkedIn so people can get in touch with you directly and ask you some questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think especially if you're trying to move to Japan, I can try to help.
Okay, thanks a lot, and wish you the best of luck.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.